So in this video, we're going to go to Best Buy and upgrade one of their cheapy desktops. This is a Pavillion for 400 bucks. Our budget is around 400 bucks. So what we want to do is we want to put some memory into it, put a video card, put a little faster hard drive to see if we can get the specs up to a higher end system. So we're just kind of cruising here. These are the higher end systems, 600 bucks, but we want at least 16 gigs of RAM. We're going to eventually upgrade to 32 gigs, but we want at least 16 gigs of RAM. 16 gigs of RAM is the minimum you should be working with. More the merrier. So we're just scrolling here to see what's available. We want something in town. That's the other requirement. Something in town. We want to work on it today. Obviously, you can go online and get stuff online. But we want to see what's in town today with at least 16 gigs of RAM and under 500 bucks. If we can. So as you can see here, obviously you can look at Best Buy's website, but we want at least 16 gigs of RAM. So we're just going to check here, and we want, 32 gigs. So it's 32 gigs of RAM. That's eventually where we're going to be, $2,200 system. So we're going to see if we can do a bare bones or a minimal system. It's not bare bones, but a cheapy system for around 500 bucks. So as you can see here, some of these higher end systems for 1,500 bucks. So this is to take a baseline system and throw some parts at it and see if that's going to improve our quality, our performance. So our next requirement is we picked some memory here. This is 32 gigs of memory, 115 bucks. It's 3200 megahertz. So actually comparing this system for 32 gigs of memory, that's $1,800. It's not going to be quite exactly because this is a gaming system. So I'm just comparing the memory speed. Obviously this is geared towards a gaming, so this is where we want to be. But basically it's got a little more video card, etc. It's a little bit higher CPU. So this is the Corvette. So we want to turn our little tiny Honda into a Corvette. So I'm just kind of showing some specs here. This is a more even comparison to $1,400 Dell desktop, not in stock, 32 gigs of RAM. It's an i7. So i7, and then I'm just quickly looking here to see what the Mac world would have. We're not interested in the Macs, but this is 1,400 bucks. We're going to upgrade a baseline desktop model. Got this from Best Buy. It's all that they had. So here's some of the specs. It's a Pavillion i3, 10th generation, 8 gigs DDR4, 256 SSD, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so it's also got Windows 11 Home, which we're going to strip out. Who cares about McAfee? We don't care. Drop out, we don't care. So we're going to take this and we're going to try to make it, or we're going to upgrade this. So we're going to upgrade it actually to 32 gigs of RAM and 3200 3.2 gig memory. It's got 2.6 gig in it already. And then we're going to get a 512 SSD, a high performance hard drive, and then we're going to try this video card. It's a 2 gig. I think it's a PCI 1, maybe PCI Express 1 by. It's 2 gigs. So we're going to see we're going to upgrade our system, and this system is for my elderly mom. So it's about 620 bucks that you're seeing. The card I already had on hand. Got it from Amazon a while back. Note that this hardware
is crazy expensive. Like, it's very hard to find video cards now. All the data miners are using them, and crazy prices for old hardware. Crazy prices. Some say it's the supply chain, some say it's the data miners, but the price of these video cards have gone stupidly expensive. Anyways, we're going to try to turn this little Yugo into maybe Toyota MR2 or something like that. So we're going to see if our upgrades, how this works, and kind of walk you step by step through. Okay, this is the unboxing. Not really that exciting, but you do get a keyboard and mouse with this setup. We're going to use it. I'm going to give this to my mom. We're going to put this aside because as I'm building this, I'm going to hook this up to my KVM and my other monitor. So I'm going to put this aside. So this is how they build it. I'm kind of glad they're not using styrofoam, and they're using cardboard for more sustainability. So this is the way it comes, and I'll pull it out, and then we'll start taking the cover off, and then swapping out parts, and then starting this build. Okay, this is just an overview. It's a little Pavillion. You can see the specs. I'll show the specs later. And this is a bare bones. It was 400 bucks. So this is the front cover. Power, as you can see here, you can look up the specs. It's got a nice little SD card reader and i3. So this is the front, which is really annoying. This is fake. This is fake. I do not know why they're doing this. Maybe because, but this is fake. There's a lot of people who say, well, there's no DVD drive. So this is kind of misleading. So take that out as you will. So spinning around. So here's the back. Basics, HDMI, VGA, USBs. Here's our expansion slots. So it looks like it's fairly easy to get the screws out. There's one there. And this will just slide out, and then we'll start opening up. And oh, a little tip, that screw does not come out all the way, which is actually a nice little design feature. Just enough to unscrew it. You can see it screws in there, and it just pulls out. So this does not screw all the way out, which is a nice feature. So we just used a little tiny screwdriver here, and it's nice. It's just the one screw, so that's nice. I'm wearing gloves. I do not have a static wrist strap. So this is the basic overview. Pretty basic. It's a nice little system, but we're going to improve this. What I've found when I've purchased any systems, desktops or laptops, you can always buy these with upgraded components, like with RAM and bigger hard drives, etc., etc. But what I've found is I like to get all my parts at the same time as the computer, because what I found is I've bought a computer, let it run for several years, had happy luck with it, and then I want to upgrade it. Well, a lot of times is they no longer make the memory because the memory faster, cheaper, and all that. So I always like to get all my parts at the same time, same vintage as the computer. That way everything is the exact same, because 2 or 3 years down the road, the memory will they probably won't have that same memory. It'll probably be like DDR50 or something, who knows, but everything changes so fast. It's one of those where I want to upgrade right now and upgrade everything, instead of like later, oh, I want to get some new memory. Oh, I want to get a different hard drive. Oh, they changed the interface on it. So I found it's just best to get everything I need right at the same time I'm purchasing the computer. Obviously, if I was building this, I would build out all the pieces. And mind you, I'm a big fan of building systems. Big fan. But those prices have skyrocketed because of gamers. And people building their systems. It used to be you could get a case from Micro Center or wherever, who knows, for like less than 50 bucks, maybe even 20 bucks. Yeah, it's a cheapy case, but you could get a case with power supply, Well, now the cases are like 200 bucks. A lot of them don't even come with power supplies. So I priced all these parts up individually, and the prices ended up more than buying a little cheapy system and then upgrading it myself. There's some pros and cons. You got to do your own analysis and find where you get your own parts from. I like Tiger Direct. Micro Center's okay, except it's so far out there. But a lot of people say, "Oh, you can build a system cheaper, and good for you." But what I found is the parts have skyrocketed. These little simple cases. Obviously, if you're pumping a lot of wattage through, you're going to want something beefy. But just a little simple little desktop system, these cases are like 200 bucks. Then you throw on CPUs and RAMs and hard drives and video cards and all that, you're well over the price of a baseline system. So we're hoping to hope to put some upgrades in this system, and yeah, we're putting 32 gigs of RAM is 100 bucks for the upgrade. If you find a 32 gig system, it's like $3 grand. It's stupid expensive. So we're gonna walk through this, and I'll show you what I do. Okay, we remove this little screw from here, and this just pops out or slides up, and I'll probably use a little piece of wire to hold that. But basically, I want to unscrew the hard drive down here. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a little tiny screw down there. I'll get some more access and show you a better picture. Probably not very hard to see that, but there's a little tiny Phillips, like a zero head Phillips, that I'm going to unscrew, and then we're going to pull out that hard drive. So here's the old SSD. It's 256 gig. This actually has Windows 11 Home on it, so if we mess up, we can always go back here. I'm going to put it in an anti-static bag that I had lying around. I'm going to put this aside, and then I'll show you how to put in the new one. Okay, this is the new one. We got our little tiny little screw. Magnetic tip is always helpful. So this is the new one. This is supposed to be faster, bigger, etc., etc. So I'm using gloves. It'd be best if you had an anti-static wrist strap, that you ground yourself, a wrist strap that goes from your wrist to the grounding case to ground yourself so you don't fry these. I'm going to try very careful not to touch those leads. Again, that's why I'm wearing gloves, so I don't get smudges on it, and so to try to cut down on the anti-static. And I am grounding my wrist to the edge of the case to try to ground myself as well. Okay, I'm zooming in. There's a little notch that cover goes into. Usually the manufacturer's ID that goes up, but in this case there's a little notch, as you can see there, and that notch fits in with that M2 connector. So okay, I pushed it in kind of hard, but you don't want to shove it in there. It'll fit, and then it'll angle up a little bit. So I have my little tiny screw, and then we'll screw it down at its little post. But this is the way it's spring loaded, and then we will screw that one end down with the little screw that came out of the original. Okay, now it shows. Now I do notice there's a little bit of play. As you can see, like maybe 60, 80 thousandths of play. That's all the way the screw is all the way turned down. So I think it's going to work okay, and these cables in the way, but so yeah, that's it. I pushed it in pretty tight just so it gets seated. And that's the new SSD hard drive. And then next we're going to work on the RAM memory here. So we're going to pop out the new one. I'm still going to leave this cover off to give me access room. What I do is obviously just push, and that pushes up on one side, And then the other, likewise, they don't give you a super ton of room, but that just pops out there. Memory just pops out. And we're going to set this aside. I'm going to put this in my anti-static bag. We got two memory slots. I'm going to set that aside, and then I'm going to open up these. And you will notice that there's a slot in the middle. And then we'll put our memory in, upgraded memory. So that was 8 gigs. We're putting 32 gigs. I think all systems should have minimum 32 gigs. Minimum 8 gigs is pathetic in today's world. So minimum 32 gigs, and this maxes out this motherboard. If you were building a system, I would look for a system that could probably support 512, maybe even a terabyte of memory. This was $114. Now it is 3200 megahertz. The one that we just took out is 2666. It's a little faster. I don't have a ton of specs on this motherboard. Once we pop into the BIOS to see match the memory speed to the BIOS, we can see what the motherboard supports, but I couldn't find a ton of specs online for this motherboard. So we're going to put this memory in and then work on the video card. So I'm just comparing physical size. This is the old one. This is the new upgraded one. Make sure it fits. I believe desktop memory. I think so. Everything should line up. I think it's 288 pins. I can't remember. It's just desktop memory. It might say on the back. But yeah, I think it's 288. I'm not quite sure though. So yeah, but I just want to show you a physical comparison. One in. And so this one just fits. I have the little tabs pulled out. You kind of have to line it up, and obviously you have to flip it around because that doesn't fit. You have to make sure that groove fits and the other groove fits. It's hard to see with the light, sorry. And then it should just snap in. I don't know if you heard that click. And I always press it down all the way like you see here. I'm pressing it down just to seat it really well. Not enough to spin the motherboard, but I like to push it down. Not a ton of pressure. Just make sure that it's nice and tight, and these sides are locked in. The other side's locked in. Yeah, it's nice and tight. So there we go. Sorry, the lighting. There's 32 gigs, and then we have our 512, and then our video is going to be this slot down here. So the first one, the top one is PCI Express 4x, and this is 16x, this bigger one. 16x is what you want. So let's go put the video card in next. Put this in. So obviously that slot is blocking us, so we have to pop up that slot. But I'm just mock putting it in here with one hand. And then we'll just pop out that slot on the case there. But I just want to see which one I have to poke out. Okay, see this little tab here? There's a little arrow. This just pushes forward and releases that. Then that way we can put our cards in, but we still have to knock out this one here. But this is a nice little access point. Nice little door that flips down. I'm never really elegant on pushing these out. A little bit of force, I have a little bit of screwdriver, and you can see there's a little bit of give popping these out. On the older cases, these were just free floating and they were just held in by a tab. Some are screwed down. But I'm never super elegant in popping these out. I'm not using a ton of force, I just want to break it free without messing up the case. So these just pop out. And so I use my little screwdriver, careful not to deform the case. And I'm just moving this out with my fingers. Mind you, this sharp edges, so I would use gloves. Even if you're not using rubber gloves, I'd still use like mechanics gloves or something because these edges are really sharp. So I'm just pulling this out here like this. Pulls out pretty easy, but I just didn't want to mess up the rest of the case. And you can just throw that little strip away. Then we'll put our video card in. Okay, now with that out of the way, we put our little tab down. I don't know if you can see it here. Put some light down, but that tab goes behind the motherboard, or between the case and the motherboard. It does not go on the motherboard, it goes between the motherboard and the case. And then this just pushes in there, and then we'll put a little screw and screw that in. So yeah, this is kind of how we're looking. I just want to make sure I'm lined up before I snap this in. I've angled it up because you want the back of that little tang. There's a little stopping piece that locks into the motherboard. So this is angled up and the back goes in first, and then I'm going to press all this all the way down. But it should line up. Then the back goes in first. I don't know if that makes sense or not. So I'm pulling this out. So see that little black plastic hook? That hooks onto our card here. So I want to angle it like this. Sorry, the power supply's in the way. And see, I don't know if you can, you probably can't see, but it hooks into the video card to lock it down. So this hooks on first, and then you glide it in the slot, and then you just press it in. Okay, a little tip there. That end, you may have to bend this end in a little bit, because I don't know if you can see that end there. Probably not, sorry. But see, I bent that very end in so it slips between the motherboard because it was going outside. And so now I had bent it in with my fingers, and it should automatically just lock into place. Push it down a little bit. It should click into place. Some of these video cards, they come with different sizes here. So I either have to trim or get the different bracket for this video card so it can seat, because we're off maybe a 1/4 inch. I don't know if it's bottoming out on the motherboard case or what. So some of these video cards have different adapters, so you can pop it out. This piece here is too long. I can either shave off a little bit, cut off a little bit there, or just, I don't know if this is, I think this is bottoming out. So I'm just going to take my little pliers and nip off a little bit of that end of that tang there. Again, not the most elegant, but this bracket is a little too long. Just took some pliers and gently just kind of broke that piece off. I don't know, about a 1/4 inch or whatever. I think it was bottoming out and it was too long, so the card couldn't set correctly. And then I kind of pushed it in back a little bit so it can fit. It's got to slide between the motherboard and the case. I'm going to put a little screw in there, and then now it fits. So yeah, definitely it was bottoming out. It was too long for this case. And sometimes you have to trim those brackets. So it's seated correctly, looking on the back side here, or the other side. So as you can see, it's seated, and then the back there it's locked in. There's a little tab that locks it in there, and it's seated. I pushed it down on all sides here. Pushed it down here, just push it down fairly well. You don't need to put a ton of force, but make sure it gets seated all the way down. And this case is actually pretty generous. There's a ton of room. So I don't have, a lot of these cases are so tiny. Bear that in mind if you get a small case, better have small fingers or know somebody that has small fingers, because I have big hands, and this case is a nice size case. So obviously you can get a larger case, but there's a ton of room. So then this is seated. We'll put a little screw here. I have a little screw in my screw bin, and then we'll go from there. We actually don't need a screw. I'm sorry, take that back. We don't need a screw because this little bracket, it's held into place. I don't know, I see it's locked into place here. There's a little keyed spot, and we don't need a screw because this little holder snaps into place like that and then just clicks into place. That's super convenient. So scratch that, you do not need a little tiny computer fastener. We put our little this little bracket back on, put the screw back in. Everything looks tight. Everything pushed everything in. So now we put the case back on. Usually I leave the case off when I'm building it so I can adjust it, but this is such an easy case to pop on and off. Usually when I'm building these, just to make sure everything's seated, but I'm pretty confident everything's seated in correctly and it was tight. I'm just going to quickly put the case on because it's super easy to take in and off. So here's the case. It fits in these little grooves. It's actually pretty straightforward. The case is really light metal. So you get it in the tracks, and this is stuck. Many computers have I built, I always have problems with the cases. Always. So I'm glad they made it convenient. So there's some slots that this fits into. But we're off, I don't know, maybe 3/4 of an inch. So now everything is flush and flat. And then it should just push forward. So this is apart, maybe even up to an inch, 3/4 of an inch. And we're all flat. Flat here. And then it just pushes forward. Maybe, yep. You have to push it in. You have to push it in place here. And then the little screw. And that's neat that it just, and of course you screw that in. I'm not putting it in super tight because in case we got to get it out. But yeah, I do have to hand it to him. Not a lot of fighting with the case. Usually my cases, after several years, because after I've fought with them, missing all the little screws, this fits nice and tight. So we're nice and tight here. Nice and tight. So yeah, we're good. So now I'm going to hook it up, and then we'll check out the BIOS. Okay, we booted up. We actually ended up taking the video card out. So there's a hole where the video card is. I can plug it up, but the video card evidently was bad. So scratch that install. So we're going to go ahead and go to the BIOS. We pressed F2. Obviously, I can look up the BIOS. These are memory tests. Let's go to. These are all tests. Exit. Yes. We did a system board test. We recognized the 32 gigs of RAM. Now we're just go into the BIOS. Press F10 as it's powering up to get to the BIOS. So I googled how to access the BIOS. So as it's powering up, keep pressing F10 to access the BIOS. We just want to double check our time. Our time's off. 32 gigs of RAM. System board. Okay, so let's go ahead and fix the time. And then obviously we can punch through this. Security, I normally don't put a BIOS password because that annoys me. You can set a BIOS password, but you have to remember it. I do not because that annoys me. There's the TMP that's used for Windows 11. We don't really care about that because we're running Windows 10 Pro. So now this is just some settings, but I don't like to put a BIOS password. You can. Here's configuration. Here's our boot option. So we're going to go into the configuration. So we went to boot order. And we're going to go to USB first, USB flash drive first. Because we want to go ahead and install the BIOS, install the OS on this. So it says over here, select the device, press F5, F6 to push it down, push it up. So we're gonna boot from the USB, then we're gonna plug in our USB. So all these, so then we also have USB boot enabled. We could do network boot, but I just have a USB. So that's so far so good. And then let's just go back here and let's just check to see if it's found our hard drive. Then you want to save changes and exit, and then we're going to boot up using our USB. Bootable media. Okay, good news, bad news. Bad news, we couldn't use the new fancy. It didn't detect this. It wouldn't detect this. I don't know. I went into the BIOS. I couldn't. It wouldn't detect this. That's the bad news. Not terribly concerned, because I wanted to load Windows 10 Pro on this instead of what it comes with, Windows 11 Home. So that's a little faster SSD, but whatever. Good news, it's detecting the RAM, and I was able to get the video card to work, so it's working through the video card. So I consider that a win. So we're going to button this up. I went through the BIOS instead of wasting your time poking through there on the video. Went through the BIOS and I could not find anywhere to I tried to get USB boot and I couldn't USB boot, so whatever. So it's right here. It would not let me change to USB flash. So regardless, if I push this down, as you can see here, it will not let me select USB flash. So this is the order. This is the boot order. I could not select USB flash. So where it's selected at, that's where it's going to start booting. So not crazy about that, but so now we want to set TPM, because that's Windows 11 loves that. We don't want to clear TPM. Let's do device security. All of my device, all the audio, network, SATAs, all that's available. So we don't care about that. USB security. All the devices, front and rear ports, are all enabled. That's good. Slot security. All my slots are enabled. PC Express 16 by 1, M2, M1 slots. Those are all enabled. Configuration. Boot option. I could have done a network boot, but so yeah, just basic stuff here. This is the BIOS to access. This is F10. So I was hoping to not load. I guess I could do a different boot up, but I just want to get this going. So we're going to save changes, and then now this is what this is going to do. Is this is going to boot up to Windows 11. So now it's booting up Windows 11 because I was switching drives out. So we'll just wait for it to do its thing. At least we got a decent video card. I did not repair, so we're going to do options here. Yay, the fun of excitement of Windows 11. Oh, I'm so excited. See, you punch through the screen. This is a brand new build. We don't need a second keyboard layout. We skip. And let me go ahead and connect this to the network. So this upgrade is actually just the RAM, the memory. Left the existing hard drive in, and the video card that I had was junk. It was flaking out, so we're not using that. So this is basically $400 plus the plus 114 for the 32 gigs of memory. Windows privacy settings. This is a desktop. I do not want them tracking my location. I do not want them finding my device. I do not want them sending diagnostic information. I don't want inking and typing, tailored experiences, advertising ID. Those are all no for privacy. Now we want to uninstall all the bloatware that's installed on this. Don't care about Express SVPN. Uninstall. Yes, I want to uninstall that. Uninstall ExpressVPN. HP, that's all the extra HP crap. Maps. McAfee, there you go, our favorite. Uninstall. I'm just gonna go through the uninstall of this. I want to remove all the files. I don't know why it can't let me go back. Oh, that's cute. Okay, let's click uninstall here. Removing all the bloatware. Uninstall LiveSafe. Yes. Continue, check all those. Continue. McAfee puts a lot of crap on there, and then once everything expires, it freaks people out and says, "Oh, you're unprotected. You're unprotected." So we're just uninstalling all this crap. Okay, by default on all new builds, Microsoft puts 365, but it's just a trial version. It's just a trial version. So I already bought Office. Oh, this is cute with McAfee. Why do you want to go? It slows down my PC. I get too many notifications. Goodbye, McAfee. I don't want to restart now. Restart later. More crap to uninstall. WebAdvisor by McAfee. Yes. No thanks. Uninstall this crap. Done. Wild Tangent Games. My elderly mother does not need to play Wild Tangent games. Do not care about Xbox. If you're a gamer, but this does not apply to me. Do not care about Xbox. Do not care about Xbox Game Bar. Do advanced options. I don't know why that needs permissions. Maps, well, there's Google Maps. Edge update. News, don't really care about Microsoft News. That's what websites are for. Solitaire, Microsoft Store, we're not buying anything. Oh, this is cute, the team stuff. I'm going to leave it just for now. HP. This is the office that we bought. People photos. Power Simple Solitaire by Salad Games LLC. Who cares? Let's get rid of it. Let's get rid of this crap. Tips, voice recorder, weather, security, Windows terminal. Don't really care. Xbox Live, uninstall. Your phone, don't really care. So that's some of the crap that we have installed on this machine. Trying to get rid of all that bloatware. The biggest one was McAfee. This is all basic stuff. HP, Feedback Hub, Cortana. It's dumb. Okay. Okay, let's go up here. Okay, Adobe. We need to uninstall Adobe because Adobe shouldn't be on this box. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, this is interesting. TikTok, we don't really care about that. Most people have that on their phone. Facebook, most people have that on their phone. My mom's not interested in that. Spotify, most people have that on their phone. We don't care about that. Adobe Express. Uninstall, uninstall. Disney Plus, that's on the TV, or don't really care about that. Prime Video, don't really care about that. Clipchamp, I'm not sure what that is. Let's see what Adobe offers.
Memory, we went to Best Buy, found a $400 little desktop, and then we threw some memory into it. Took it from 8 gigs to 32 gigs of memory. We tried to update the video card. You can if you have a decent video card. Then we tried to update the hard drive, put a little more hard drive into it. You can do the same. But that's our process. So hopefully this was helpful. So we turned our little i3 Gen 10 8 gigs to 32 gigs, so put a speed in it.